Well, welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs as we continue to stream stories across the web and across all of our Radio Entrepreneurs networks. Over 7,000 interviews since we started. My name is Jeffrey Davis. I am the host of Radio Entrepreneurs, also CEO, founder of Mage LLC, management consulting firm to over 700 business leaders since 1985. Our next guest, let's hope I do this well. Carrie Pasquarello, CEO and co-founder of Global Secure Resources, Inc. Well, the company name's a lot easier than your name to say. That's good. Well, welcome, Carrie.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here today, Jeffrey.
Well, thank you. Can you tell us about GSR?
Sure, absolutely. So Global Secure Resources provides strategic planning, executive coaching, and consulting for travelers, including business travel, expat, solo, and student travelers. And so our simple premise is you have to know the risk to avoid the risk. And the company's goal is really to promote personal safety through risk mitigation and strategies and developing contingency plans. We also do this through our community awareness and prevention programs with the total goal of improving safety and security so travelers can focus on seeing the world while saving time and money. That's what we do.
I guess during these times, that's pretty good. I'm not going to Afghanistan, that's for sure. Not in my travel plans. It wasn't anyway. But I would assume that you've done a lot of work for the government. Is that a correct or incorrect assumption?
Well, I think part of my strategic planning actually stemmed from the State Department. So I took my overseas experience with the private sector and the State Department and really turned it into a platform to help others navigate travel safety. I spent over a decade traveling throughout Europe and Asia, really developing my business strategies based on risk mitigation that I refined over my extensive travel. And really, so it comes into full circle because now having Global Secure Resources, we do have clients that come in and ask us to do our individual threat assessment plans, our student safety assessments for their children traveling abroad or for their families traveling abroad, because they understand, that's one thing that the State Department really understands is the protocols and how best to keep your family and travelers safe as they travel the world. So it all is interconnected, I would say.
When you come across people and you talk to them, do you think we don't think about these types of things enough?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a new book that I just got, and it's the Ostrich Paradox: Why We Underprepare for Disasters. It's a fascinating read, but it's true. People have a lot of different biases. One is amnesia bias. We forget about past incidences, and we don't really prepare as much as we should for our future and for our travel plans. So I find it's very critical to identify the risk so we can avoid the risk. It's once again a simple premise, but it's so important to our personal safety and how we travel.
Interesting. So how do we increase public awareness for these important services, and how do you do it?
Right. So, Global Secure Resources, one of the first things I did actually with my business was, besides developing the individual threat assessment plan and the student safety assessment, was trying to get the message out with the community awareness and prevention program. So I started writing for Medium. I started reaching out to HARO, which is Help Out a Reporter. So I was trying to get what we do out in the general public. So really having groups that come together so that we can talk about travel safety, people being able to read about travel safety and talking about travel safety. All of those things together really makes for a community awareness, right? So we can talk about the different elements of safety. And one that always comes to mind is our gender violence prevention program, right? So I worked in direct services with victims and survivors. And one of the most important things that we saw was the awareness how do we get people to start talking about these instances so that we can learn from past mistakes and past episodes, that so we can really keep our families safer. It's a hard job, but getting it out in the public is one of the best things that we can do. And I will have to say that I recently wrote a book on this subject. So this is really exciting. It was just released this month. It's called Study Abroad Safety, A Parent's Guide to Sending Your Child Abroad. And within this book, I describe exactly how you can actually develop your own individual threat assessment plan, your own student safety assessment. And once again, this is just another platform to get people to understand that these resources are available.
Well, I think that that's important, and a lot of students do study abroad, and I don't think it's the way it's not the same as it used to be at all to study abroad. I mean, that was something I wanted to do when I went to university. Now I think I would think twice about doing it.
Yeah, and really that's a shame, because the world has so much to offer, right? And the key is, and the State Department understands this, they can send people into some of the most dangerous areas in the world, but they can do it safely because they do have risk mitigation strategies in place. They do have the backup plans, the plan A, plan B, plan C. They have ways of evacuation. There's so many things that go into it. And one of the things that I saw personally overseas, I traveled over when I was younger. And then when I returned, I was planning on staying for just 1 year over in Europe. And I was involved with a group, and I ended up having a job offer in Milan, Italy. So I went to Milan and started working. And this is where one of the most important risk mitigation strategies came into place. And it is, you need to know somebody to call in case of an emergency. And my father and my family were all into risk mitigation as well. And so they set me up with somebody that I could connect with in Milan, just in case I had some type of emergency. And sure enough, they connected me with my husband, who happened to be working at the consulate and for the Justice Department. And that ended up turning into my many, many years overseas and having children all living overseas as well. So my number one priority when it comes to student safety was my own children. And so one of the interesting things that I saw was, once again, how unprepared American travelers were. And this was really front and center for me when I sent my daughter off to do a study abroad program in Africa. And one of the interesting things was how we need so much more transparency for our study abroad programs. Parents just rely on the schools that they have it all taken care of. And what is interesting is sometimes they don't. We were planning on sending our daughter to, the study abroad program. And so we decided to go up and talk with the director and make sure that we understood where they were staying, what boat they would be traveling on, who was in charge of the trip, all these critical questions that parents should ask. And when we got up there, what was so shocking was the director had no idea, because they planned on passing it off to a third-party provider. The third-party provider was in charge of all these, these regulations and security protocols. But that was a complete disconnect. So it took us a while to, really ascertain all the information we needed to make sure that we were comfortable sending her. And we did. We had some really incredible backup plans for her, one which I know saved her life while she was on this program. Which is in the book. So we'll have everybody get a copy of the book. But the point is, there's so much more that needs to go into protecting our students overseas. And I started working with some families that had some really catastrophic events happen to them. And so back here in Massachusetts, I went up to our state house and started working on trying to improve legislation to protect students, to make sure that they're prioritizing, that schools would prioritize the health and safety and security of our students, or conduct risk assessments, all the things that we do in Global Secure Resources. I just need more students to understand, and more parents to have the ability to find the information they need to keep their kids safe, because there's nothing more important than our precious children in this world. So,
and I assume this is not just sort of terrorist attack, it's also natural disasters which could affect our children. As we're seeing, we just saw a natural disaster in our southern hemisphere just this week, and we've seen
Right.
stuff happening in Asia. So there's many ways that people can be under risk, and I think that that's important that you look at these things. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And every single year we have earthquakes, we have, hurricanes, we have these environmental issues. In some areas we have, air pollution, right? And before, in 2019, we had such an enormous amount of people traveling the world, right? We were at our peak, we were growing. And then of course the pandemic hit and everything came to a screeching halt. But once again, we do have business travelers. We do have students out there traveling. Before we had over 300,000 students annually traveling abroad. That was of course drastically decreased because of what's happening, but they are starting up these programs again, and they are sending students. I've consulted with families and students studying abroad now. So, I mean, this is really important as this picks up, and as people are starting to regain their confidence in traveling, and they're getting their vaccinations. There's just important things that they should know before they go, and that's basically what we love to focus on, which is the 3 Ps: proactive, prepared, and protected. So we have a great strategy.
Well, Carrie, thank you. I really appreciate this. You have great energy for what you're doing, and I know it's very important. If someone wants to contact you at Global Secure Resources, I call it CSR, how would they find you?
Right. So they can go and visit our website at globalsecureresources.com. Or they can find us at globalsecurestudent.com. They can call us at 1-800-939-0562. I'd be happy to jump on a call with anybody if they have any questions. Or they can email us at info@globalsecure.com. So please reach out, and we're here to help. We just want to make sure people are traveling, they're doing it safe, they're coming home with extraordinary adventures to talk about. And you can also find my book on Amazon. So once again, Study Abroad Safety. This is the first of a series that's coming out.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. We appreciate you being on Radio Entrepreneurs. It's time to sign off, and we appreciate you explaining all this to us.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you again.
Remind everybody, this is Radio Entrepreneurs.